I am so excited. This is our second screening for Black History Month. I think the first was amazing. This second documentary is just as amazing. UJAMAA is an amazing documentary, really about a community creating and changing the food scene in Oakland, and doing it, for themselves. And I think it's so important to have Andrea here. She is one of the co-producers. She's actually a part of the co-op as well, for this documentary. So she has a lot to say about how do we as a community in food deserts the way that they did, and also more about future. How can, as a community, no matter where we are in the world, how can we change this issue when it comes to food insecurity? So, Andrea, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you about the documentary. So first, when was this documentary made initially?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be a part of kweliTV. I love what you all are doing. Yeah.
Thank
This
you.
documentary, we worked on it it took about 2 years for us to complete the project. And I think we started around 2018. And ended towards the end of 2019. So it was about 2 years. Yeah.
And when, I know like your husband also has a project on kweliTV, I'm really curious, when did that come about to say this needs to be a story that people need to know about? When did that all start?
Yeah, at the time, my husband, who directed this documentary, he was working at an organization here in the Bay Area called BayCat, and he was working with young Black and Brown people who are interested in getting into the TV industry. So he wanted to, have a project that could be interesting for them. And at the same time, the cooperative, we're doing so much at the store, right? It's not only are we addressing food insecurity by just being there and having extremely high quality groceries available and fresh organic produce available, but we're also working with Black farmers, and there's a whole story there. You know what I mean? We're also a worker cooperative, so we're developing our skills, our technical skills and soft skills to run a business together. So there's just a lot of stories that are very interesting happening at the cooperative. And Theo, someone who, is in the film industry, I would come home and talk about what's happening. And he's like, we need to just document this. So we were able to come together with the organization that he was working at the time and bring this documentary to life.
And I think it's such an important story to tell. As someone who grew up in Memphis, definitely there was a food desert when I was like really young. I mean, there was the corner store, you had the hot dogs and the hot Cheetos, and those types of foods are really, maybe I missed it. I didn't really see like healthy choices, and I think the work that you're doing is really counteracting that. I'm really curious as to how did you get involved with this? Were you part of the early stages of this grocery store? And I'm really curious sort of, how you became involved with the grocery store in general.
Yeah. So a little bit of my background, I actually grew up in rural Virginia. So
interesting.
Yeah. So my mom, I'm fortunate in a way because my mom was really into fresh food. She was making things from scratch and really fresh. And then I went to college at Howard University, and it was just this very stark difference living in DC. I was able to experience what you're talking about, where it's just fast food is the option. You know what I mean?
The McDonald's across the street. That's frequent.
Yeah, that's what you got. You got, hot wings, Cheetos, French fries, pizza. Like this is what I was eating for 4 and 5 years. And so I started to develop some just issues with my stomach and my digestive system. And it really made me go down this whole path of connecting dots between Black people have a really high rate of obesity, really high heart disease rates, all these different cancers and all these different preventable diseases that are ailing us. And yet, what is it, the food that we're eating is kind of like this question that was in my young mind. So I started getting really into eating raw. going vegetarian, then going vegan, and just started, I was in my early 20s, so I was exploring, right? And I started drinking green smoothies and juicing. And so I was able to really heal my body. And so it just took me on this whole journey. And it's been my whole career now where I've been in the food industry, but specifically thinking about ways that we can use food as medicine to heal Black people from all of these different preventable diseases that we're plagued with today. So that's my background. That's been my passion. I'm fortunate to be able to work in the space that is my passion. So yeah, I started a green smoothie company. I was selling my green smoothies to different grocery stores and tech companies here in the Bay Area. Mandela Grocery Cooperative was one of the stores that my little bottles were sitting on their shelf. And, make a long story long, I kind of started talking to the worker owners, and they're like, come be a part of the store, so that's how I got involved. Yeah.
Great. That's a really great story. Can you still hear me? I feel like I'm frozen a bit.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. That's a really great story and very interesting story, because it's so true when you talk about food deserts in our communities and how it's connected to so many elements that we're seeing in our communities. And it's something that even I've been on this journey as well to try to eat healthier. I've been trying to get my family to eat healthier. And sometimes it's just so hard when I kind of tell people, it's kind of like content and food are very similar to me in how you digest it, where like you can get the wrong types of food, same thing, the wrong types of content. And sometimes you're so used to eating the junk foods, the hot Cheetos. It's so hard to get people to eat healthier because that's all they're used to. And I'm really curious with this particular store and opening it. I know in the documentary you mentioned sort of having classes and ways that people can cook foods and prepare foods. Talk about the importance of education with the store and educating people on changing their habits, and I think it totally can be done. I'm really curious what the approach your store takes to changing habits and how we eat so we can heal ourselves.
That's a really excellent question. Thank you for asking that. Our approach to educating the community around nutrition is understanding that wellness is a journey, and everyone's at a different point in that journey. You might have an elder who just went to the doctor and was told you need to cut your sodium, or a young person who just has heard about going vegan or eating raw and wants to learn more. And so we kind of have to meet, or you have the person who's like, where are the Cheetos? Like, I don't even understand. Where's the Coca-Cola? Like, why aren't my products that I'm used to seeing in this store? You know what I mean? So we kind of understand, like, whatever the question that customers are asking, that you're at a different point in your wellness journey. And it's our responsibility as stewards in this healthy food space to explain what's going on here, or kind of meet people where they're at. And we do, it's a very personalized experience when customers come into the store. If they're asking questions, we can walk them over to, we have different spice blends that are sodium free. We have all types of things like that, and we can explain, well, we don't carry Cheetos because they have dye number 4 in them, and that can cause cancers. Like, it's like, we can explain things to people, and sometimes they turn around and walk out. They'll come back. We're planting seeds. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But for people who are a little bit further along on their wellness journey and understand, they're looking for very specialized types of things like sea moss, spirulina, you know what I mean? People who come in looking for sausage that doesn't have sugar in it or doesn't have the pork casing. Like, we have products like that. So, yeah.
And that makes the work you do even more important than, let's say, a traditional grocery store, because a traditional grocery store, it's not that community minded where they're literally kind of holding customers' hands in order for them to understand, what they put in their mouths. So I think that it makes the work that you do even more important. I'm really curious, like, the process of creating a co-op. Like, what does that even look like, and how does it, I know like the documentary touched on it, it's kind of like a pie versus a slice. But the day to day of being a part of a co-op, what does that look like for employees? Because not only, to me, not only are you creating a space where you're ending a food desert, you're also creating a space and employees have equal rights at a job, which we also know is a big issue within our community. So you can talk a little bit about how how the dynamic works at Mandela.
Yeah. So the co-op took quite a while to get off the ground. It took 10 years or 10 years to open the doors. And it started from a group of individuals, elders who lived in West Oakland, and they started a farmers market across the street from our current location. So it was just, food stands. And eventually organizations were able to kind of support this group of people, find funding, and open the store, which, it cost a $1.5 million to get the store open. So this is it's a big endeavor to open a grocery store, and it takes,
especially in Oakland, right? I mean, the Bay Area is expensive. Real estate.
Yeah, our city council person was involved. Multiple different foundations were involved. So it is an effort, right, to create a place like this. But once the stores open, then it took about 6 years for us to get to a place where we're profitable. And I try and tell this whole story because a lot of people reach out to us. We're often asked, we want to start a grocery store. What can we do? And I just try to tell people, go in with your eyes open, because running a small business, as you know, is incredibly time consuming. It's incredibly challenging. Running a grocery store is times 10. Like, it's really like the grocery industry. Our competitors are Amazon, Whole Foods. Do you know what I mean? It's incredibly hard. So I try and tell people, like, go in with your eyes open. It is possible. I don't want people to be like, oh, let's not even do it, because it is possible, because we're doing it. But it's going to take real work, real soul. Like, you're going to be asking yourself, why am I doing this? And you need to be connected to your why deeply, But, and that's those are the types of conversations that we have at Mandela Grocery. We meet every week, the team, and we try and keep our channels of communication nice and open, because we need to be checking in with each other. We need to really be working together, and yeah, I guess I could take this in a lot of different ways, like trying to answer your question of what is it like to work at a cooperative, where we really divide the responsibilities equally among each other, but we also divide the profits at the end of the year equally among each other based off of hours worked and projects, kind of special projects. Because in addition to coming into the store, flipping that open sign every day, flipping it closed every night, somebody's got to be working the floor. One of us, the owners, working on the floor every single day. In addition to that, we're doing programs also. So we're having the nutritional education classes. We have a Sunday service program where we're making hot plates and handing them to the houseless neighbors, so we're doing above programs that are above and beyond. So we split our profits based on hours worked in the store and the number of kind of special projects that members are a part of each year.
Thank you for explaining that, because I think a lot of people don't quite understand co-op. What does that mean? There is no boss, right? I mean, everyone equally owns the company, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is no boss. I was hired as the manager of Mandela Grocery Cooperative. And so what that means is that I am tasked with holding our team accountable to doing the things that we collectively agree to do. Okay. So it's not a manager, it's not a boss position, but it is I'm going to remind you that last week we said we were going to do X, Y, and Z. Hasn't been done. Do we need to change the agreement, or what's happening here? And that position was one that the co-op agreed that was necessary at that, right around that transitional moment when the stores tipped to becoming profitable. They're like, we need somebody who can just keep us on our toes.
Right,
And I
right.
think that's a really important position for any cooperative. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Having someone at least keeps things on task, kind of like project management, type of position. But at the same time, the employees feel like they own part of it because they do. I think a lot of times when you go to some places, people act like they don't own it. Like it's not my job. But when you know that you're a part of a bigger mission and that you're getting equal pay based off of what you worked, it gives people maybe more an incentive and feel like they're part of a bigger mission than just coming into work every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's really true. And, you know, we, everyone that works at Mandela, we just love Oakland so much. We love West
Mm-hmm.
Oakland so much.
Yeah.
And it's really special to be able to see the service that we are providing, little kids who are slowly growing up eating organic produce. You know what I mean? It's like really, it's a sweet, sweet thing to be a part of.
And even explains like what organic is, right? I remember, because my husband and we pretty much shop organic and explained it to my parents, and my dad thought organic meant it was sugar free or tasted worse or something. Like it was extracted from it. It's like, yeah, what's extracted? The chemicals and all that. That I was trying to explain to like what organic really means, and it took a while, but he finally got it. But I think like for our community, those words, organic or gluten free, like those buzzwords, I think are not for us. When actually, like if someone had a good point, like we're the ones who were initially harvesting the food. We were the farmers. We were farming for everyone. And now we're having to retrain our community terms that our ancestors probably knew well,
Yeah.
very, very well.
Well, and we didn't used to need terms like organic because
Right.
there didn't used to be pesticides being sprayed on everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird, the food industry has really taken a weird turn. And I had a similar conversation with my father, who had a heart attack a few years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
he's from the Midwest and he loves steak and ribs. What? Are you kidding? He eats pork chops all the time. And I had to kind of explain, like, meat isn't grown or like, cows and pigs are not treated today the way they were when you were growing up. They're getting all types of shots and live in tiny little cages and not
Mm-hmm.
around. And that energy and all of those chemicals are in the meat that you're eating. And, and people just don't know, especially our elders. They're used to back before, when policies and processes in the meat industry were very different from what they are now. Yeah, so there's a lot of unknown stuff happening, kind of hush hush stuff happening in the food industry. And when you talk about cheap, we got to get food cheap. It's like you are paying a big cost for this cheap food,
Right.
Yeah.
And that brings up another point too, because it does seem to be the healthier foods are more expensive, and unfortunately for our community, when we make less money in trying to sort of sell that, hey, this apple is more expensive because it's organic than this regular apple, but it's still better for you. I'm really curious, like how's those sort of conversations come up at your co-op?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, but it's also intentional. Do you know what I mean? Like the food industry, like it's well, we're getting into my some of my opinions.
Right, but this is the whole point of having these conversations. So yeah, I don't mind. Let's go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it kind of feeds this loop of like, let's keep people sick and let's give them medicine and let's keep the hospitals going and the pharmaceutical industry going, and the food industry is in that same loop. And so people, it's like if you have a lot of money, I was gonna say, if you have a lot of money, you have access to all the like organic and all the highest quality groceries, right? And oftentimes in low income communities, 99-cent store is the store, or or Walmart, is where you're buying groceries. And the types of vendors and farmers that you're getting, that 99-cent stores purchasing from, and Walmart in some spaces is purchasing from, there might not be that care. It's like when you're a farmer and you're thinking, I'm going to be selling this at a low price because we want this to sell it to the customer at a low price. There are a lot of shortcuts that are happening to keep the price low. And so, when on the flip side of that, organic farming, it takes much more time, it takes more care, it takes more, people, hands going around and pulling bugs off or whatever, having a diversified kind of farm environment. It just takes more intentionality, which does make the produce more expensive. In addition to that, because I work at a worker co-op, I have to also talk about labor. The food industry is, in my opinion, the most capitalistic industry. When food is cheap, 9 times out of 10, what that means is the person who picked that food, who planted that food, who picked it, probably didn't get paid fairly, most likely. And I'm going to just name drop one brand, which I don't know, might come back, but Driscoll's is a well-documented berry brand that does not pay their laborers, the people who are actually picking the berries. Driscoll's, you could buy like a $2.99 pint of strawberries or whatever. Those laborers, I mean, there's like a New York Times article that talks about slave labor, literally says slave labor, because they're like all types of crazy conditions that the workers are in, and they're like not getting paid, or like getting paid $1 an hour, $2 an hour. It's insane. So I just want people to be careful when it's cheap. It's like there's a reason why it's cheap.
Right. Yeah, you get what you pay for, literally. I mean, you're so right. Like, if it's organic and they're putting pesticides, that means that there are other ways that they need to remove the bugs. Or if it's a chicken, they're not pumping it up so it can kill it prematurely, and so it can be this big gigantic chicken, like it's walking free range. And I mean, my husband, we spend way more money. Like, we get the cheese that's grass fed from a grass fed cow that's free. I mean, like free range, all these things that we do. And so, yeah, the cheese is like $10, and I do, someone who cheap, it does hurt, but we know we're getting the best quality out there. And for some people, spending $10 on cheese is, it's a privilege. Like we're definitely privileged to be able to do that. And it is unfortunate that that we are in this position where it's the have and the have-nots, where the haves can eat healthier foods, and the have-nots, not only do they not have grocery stores, but sometimes some of the produce is unattainable just because they can't afford it. Yeah. I know in the documentary you mentioned about Black farmers, which I also think is important, because we know historically Black farmers have been pushed out and haven't been treated fairly by the government. And to see that your store in particularly, connects with Black farmers. Talk a little bit about, how you work with Black farmers and how it's impacting them as well.
Yay! I love this topic. I absolutely feel so privileged to be able to work at an organization that can reach to the Black farmers and purchase, at volume from them. It's an absolute joy. We work with, 3 Black farmers and 2 Latino farmers that we're purchasing from regularly. In the food industry, generally grocery stores are purchasing through a distributor. So you're going to one source and you're buying, all of your produce from that one source, and they're the ones that have relationships with the farmers. So we have accounts like that as well, which is how we're able to offer tomatoes in February. Do you know what I mean?
Like bananas or something like that.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. But then in addition, because we are very intentional about our sourcing, and because we're located in California, where the majority of produce is grown for the country, we're able to have personalized relationships directly with farmers. So we, at the beginning kind of had to figure out how is it that we're going to order from you. So, but we've now figured it out. We're often just texting the farmers. Farmers aren't on their computers like that. They're outside. Do you know what I mean? So we're just texting like, hey, can we get, a couple cases of collard greens, couple cases of dino kale, cilantro, garlic, onions, you know what I mean? And now we're in this nice rhythm where we know what we're getting from each one of our farmers every week. And in addition, ordering some of the stuff that comes from further away through the distributor. And yeah, so it's been great. Let's see, Mr. Scott Family Farms is one of the farmers that we work directly with. He has amazing sweet potatoes, beautiful seeded watermelon in the summertime. Mr. Sherman is another farmer, and it's cool because what I've heard from both of them is that they're both older gentlemen. And that I've heard from them that their children, who are probably like our ages, aren't super interested in farming. There's not a lot of money in farming, and it's a lot of work. But that's starting to turn. What I've heard from Mr. Scott is that's kind of starting to change a little bit because of opportunities that Mandela Grocery has helped create. We've been working with Mr. Scott and Mr. Sherman quite a bit. And during the pandemic, I know during 2020, when the George Floyd uprisings was happening, organizations were kind of reaching out to us asking how can we support? And we were putting people in touch with the farmers, buy your food from them, do you know what I mean, directly. So I think some relationships have budded from that, which I'm just really happy to see. Yeah.
It's amazing. I think it's so great. I mean, because I think I remember last year there was a story about some farmers, winning a lawsuit against the federal government. And so to know that your store is putting money back into Black farmers, I think it's amazing. And to me, it's like a full circle, right? This majority, probably Black Latinx grocery store that's in the Black part of Oakland, that's supporting the Black community, and then and then also non-supporting the community, but also supporting the Black farmers as well. It's to me, it's a full circle. And you talk about economic power in the Black community. To me, the store is definitely doing that in the way that you work with farmers and work with the community. So I just think it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it's the farmers, but it's other small businesses too. It's just it's a pleasure to be able to offer people who make No Cookie is a family owned bakery, and they make pies and cookies, and they're vegan and delicious, and it's Black owned, and we've been stocking them for years, Soyful Aromas, a soy candle company where she uses all natural oils to scent her candles. Beautiful, wonderful scents. And when I first met her, she was thinking about going out of business. And I was just like, let's try to sell your candles. And they sell out,
That's amazing.
Yeah, hair care stuff, skin product. I mean, it's just awesome to be able to offer a place that people can come shop, but also support all these other small businesses.
I know, and that's the why, right? I mean, that's the why and why you do it, because you're able to support so many people in order and help them succeed, right? To the fact that someone's going to go out of business, and your store was able to put a spark in them, hey, let me keep going. I think that's so amazing. I'm really curious about the number of co-ops there are. Do you know how many grocery co-ops there are that are Black? Majority Black owned, in Black communities? Do you know the number?
The number is 1.
Wow. Okay. That is crazy. I know, because it's so hard, right? I mean, what y'all have done to me is, that's why I want to have this conversation, is it's monumental. And it goes to show that it's something that's very not hard to duplicate, but it does take a lot of work because of the challenges, like you mentioned, to open it and to be profitable. Wow, that's insane. I know you said people have reached out about starting it.
Yeah. We want to change that. We definitely want there to be more,
Right,
more
right.
Black-owned worker co-ops nationwide. We do definitely want to change that, and that's one of our pillars where we're trying to support different groups as much as possible, knowing it's going to take a long time for another store to open from idea to actual execution. And we are working with a couple of groups right now, actually, just
Okay.
kind of very much in the idea, figuring out, who's going to be doing what phase, where location, figuring out where to put the store kind of phase, and fundraising. Fundraising takes a while. Yeah.
How did that work out for y'all? Like the fundraising, was it like a crowdfunding? Was it I'm really curious, like how we're able to receive that money to even open it.
A combination of grants from foundations, but also directly support from the city government, because you have to have representatives involved that understand what's at stake, that really understand the dynamic of the neighborhood where the store is going to be and the need. And they should be, if there's a sizable community that doesn't have access to healthy food, that city government representative needs to be voicing that and supporting that change at all costs, And so we had a person at that time when the store opened in city council who really was that voice and put her own personal money into the project. And you need someone like that. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that piece. It's your local representatives, foundation grants, people who will put their own skin in the game. It's a combination of all of that. If you need to, maybe a few loans. It took us, I think we had $200,000 worth of loans, and it took us about a decade to pay that off so that we're debt free. Because because we really want to, in ownership, it's like you really want to own your store. You know what I mean? We don't want to be owning the banks. Yeah.
In the Bay, in the one of the most expensive places in the country, you own that store. So that is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's possible.
I know. And to me, like I think the fact that you are in an area that is expensive, and my hope is that will give hope to others, right? Like if someone's in Alabama or where I'm from in Memphis, like they were able to pull this off there. Although I would say California is more progressive, and too, so that I'm sure that helps out as well. But my hope is that we can sort of spread this. I'm even thinking like we should have this conversation like on a larger scale, like on the stage somewhere, because, and this is one reason why I started the company, because I wanted people to see these types of stories and see that things can be possible if you try. It's going to be hard, like you said. You have to remember your why. You wake up in the morning. I feel that sometimes I wake up in the morning, I'm like, why, and then I go throughout the day. I'm like, oh, okay, this is why I'm doing this. Okay, I'm good. This is one of those days, like for me, having the conversation with you, like this is why I started the company, to have these conversations for people to see the work that you're doing, and hopefully they get inspired and to want to do it themselves, right? I mean, this is why we do the work.
Yeah,
it's so
absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah, our own little way of leaving the earth better than what we found it,
Right. So I have one more question, and it's around gentrification. I know like Oakland has kind of gone through this gentrification phase. Has that affected the store at all? I'm really curious.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I haven't been at Mandela Grocery Cooperative the whole time. I joined the team in 2017. But even when I joined the team, gentrification was already like really happening in Oakland, in West Oakland. And it's an interesting neighborhood. Like it's a huge wealth gap, West Oakland. Like our little tiny part of the city has millionaires living, a block away from homeless people. It's very wide, and everybody in between, but we do have, there are 5, I believe, affordable housing communities within walking distance from the grocery store. So in a way, it's our store location is really well positioned, because there are people who are going to be, low income, living near the store, regardless of all the gentrification that's going on around. Do you know what I'm saying? Because
Right.
there are some communities that, you know, are here to stay. So that's good in a way for us, so that we can just be of service to our longer term neighbors, as you know, people with tech money from San Francisco kind of flow in and out of the neighborhood. We just try and keep our laser focused on our target customer, which is the longer term Oakland
Right.
resident. Yeah. Yeah.
So I actually have one more question to this. How can people get involved? I'm really curious. Like, how can people get involved with the store, even if they're not based in Oakland or the Bay Area? You know, how can people stay in contact with, you know, what the work that you're doing?
Yes. So there are a few different ways you can stay in contact with us. Social media, we're at Mandela Grocery on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can check out, if you're in the Bay, you can order online, mandelagrocery.coop, and we will deliver your groceries to your door. We have a Black-owned delivery service named Pickup
Oh,
and
nice.
Drop. Yeah. So definitely order your groceries online. Follow us on Facebook. If you can, just want to bless us with some dollars. We have a karma jar on our website, so you could just go and give us a donation through PayPal. And yeah, those are really the ways. And just follow us. You know, we're gonna keep this thing going.
Amazing, Andrea. It was so great chatting with you. For those who missed the live stream, you can always watch it anytime you want to on kweliTV. Just go to kweli.tv and search UJAMAA, and you will be able to find the documentary at any time. This was so great talking with you. I'm so happy to have you a part of the kweliTV family, as well as your husband.
Me too.
And we want to continue this conversation. I definitely want to continue this conversation. We have to do more to talk about the work that you're doing.
Yes, it's been a joy talking with you. Thank you for the work that you're doing, for giving us a platform to share our story. I appreciate it so much. So thank you.
I appreciate that. All right, Fem, until next time.